All right. Let's just take the opportunity to set our intentions for the time that we have here in meditation and the talk tonight. This is a good opportunity to check in with yourself and just see if you're carrying any unwholesome states of consciousness, anything that might get in the way of you finding peacefulness, finding serenity and stability. And if there's anything there like anger or fear or worry or agitation, just the normal human stuff that we all experience, it's possible to objectively look at that and say, I think I'll put that down for a period of time so that I can refresh myself, so that I can do this wonderful practice and come out of it feeling better. And then you can pick those things up and work with them more skillfully. So with that said, I'll sound this bell. I can figure out what I did with my bell sounder. There it is. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. And may the merit of our practice tonight go to the liberation of all beings. May all beings be well, surrounded by love and kindness, happy, peaceful, and free. So, welcome everyone. We'll do our meditation together, so if you want to take a couple of minutes here to just get however you'd like to be, laying down, or sitting, or kneeling, however you'd like that to be. And a reminder, there's all sorts of cushions and yoga blocks and mats and things like that in the closet, so you're free to use those. Helps to invest a little time in just finding a way to be free from conflict in your own body. And it takes a while. Like Meg shared, sometimes we do a lot of sitting in meditation and experiencing discomfort before we find what works just right. And if you're laying down and you find yourself getting sleepy, you can always sit up for a period of time. And however you're sitting or kneeling or laying, find a little symmetry in your body so that both sides are bearing your weight about equally. Just want to feel comfortable. Let your eyes close softly. Let your breath be normal. Just let it come and go. Breathe through your nose if possible. And now I'll sound the meditation bell, and when it goes quiet, I'll begin to guide us through the practice. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let the silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward. We can let go of the habit of the mind, which is to be projected outward, focused on the outside world, the things around us. Instead, we can turn the awareness inward. Focus on the inner awareness. There is a sense of spaciousness and peacefulness and stability right here in our own bodies, in our own minds. So just take a moment to become aware of what it feels like to be sitting in your own body, to be laying in your own body. And with that sense of presence established, let's bring our awareness up to the top part of the head, to the area of the scalp. And for a few moments, just focus your awareness on any physical sensations that you notice in the scalp. So just be patient, be present. Any physical sensations you might notice, temperature sensations in the scalp. The room may feel warm to you or cool, or you may notice a feeling of warmth coming from your own body. Sometimes we'll notice air movement. You might notice that in the hair follicles or on the skin of your scalp. Sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin. Sometimes there's a little tickle or an itch, pulsation. So you're just here, present in the scalp, noticing any sensations, watching as they come and go. If there's tension anywhere in the scalp, if you notice that, you can just let that go. Let the tension leave your body. And then continue to observe the sensations still in the scalp. Just observing the arising and passing of sensations. And now from the scalp, you can move your awareness downward a bit into the forehead. See if you can feel that movement of awareness as you guide it downward through the forehead and temples, through the eyebrows and eyes. Once again, observing the sensations, just patiently observing. There's nothing that you need to be feeling right now, nothing you shouldn't feel. Just opening up to the natural sensations of the body, temperature, air movement, sensations on the surface of the skin. And any tension you encounter, again, you can let that go. Just allow it to leave the body unconditionally. If your brow is furrowed, or sometimes the eyebrows are raised or tight, sometimes your eyes might be squinted, or there may be tightness in the temples, just let that go. And continue to observe the sensations. You may notice a feeling of peacefulness starting to flow through the body. And from the temples, let's move our awareness downward into the ears. Become aware of the sensations there and let the tension go. And let the awareness flow forward from the ears, through the cheekbones and into the face. And from the eyes, let the awareness move downward. Let it pass through the nose and lips and mouth and chin. Once again, just observing the sensations. And there's no need to think about the sensations or name them. Just let yourself know them. Just be with them without thought. Just present. Letting tension go anywhere you find it. Might be tension in the jaws, or the teeth might be clenched. Sometimes the lips are pursed. Just let the muscles in the face go. And then from the chin, we can allow the awareness to move downward into the throat. Let it move through the sides of the neck and into the back of the neck. Again, simply observing sensation, letting the tension go. As I guide us through the different parts of the body, you can just be aware of the sensations. Release the tension as I guide us through. And moving from the neck downward into the shoulders. Feeling the sensations. There may be a sensation of contact in the shoulders if you're leaning against a chair or laying on the floor. Sometimes there is a feeling of contact between the skin and the clothing. Otherwise, sensations of temperature, air movement, other subtle sensations on the surface of the skin. Let the shoulders drop if they're shrugged. And let the awareness continue to flow downward into the upper arms now. Noticing the biceps, then rotating inward to the inside part of the upper arm, and then to the back or the triceps, and to the outside part of the upper arm. Noticing those sensations and letting the tension go. Sometimes I share the image of a butterfly when we're finding tension in the body. If we were to find a butterfly in our home or on the porch, and it was on a windowsill wanting to get out, we might walk up and gently cup that butterfly in our hands and carry it outside, and then release it into the garden or the grass. And we release it with a real kindness of heart and compassion. So if you discover tension in your own body, release it with that same spirit. That spirit of loving kindness, compassion, gentleness, letting the awareness move from the upper arms now down through the elbow joints. Really feel that movement of awareness down through the forearms now, passing down toward the wrists. Feel as the awareness moves through the wrists and into the hands. Observe the sensations on the palms of the hands, the heels of the hands. Bring the awareness to the tops of the hands, to the fingers and thumbs. Simply aware of sensations and letting tension go. Bring the awareness to the tips of the fingers and the fingernails. Just spend a little time observing in the fingernails. Are there any sensations? And you might find that there are very subtle sensations there. Just observe. And now from the tips of the fingers, we'll bring our awareness up to the top of the chest. You can spread it across the collarbones. And then let the awareness flow downward through the chest. Feel it moving downward all the way to the base of the sternum, and then outward through the rib cage. Just observing, letting go. You can bring your awareness now to the underarms. Allow the awareness to flow down through the sides of the body all the way to the waist. observing, letting go, and then bring the awareness forward into the belly. Observe the sensations in the belly as it rises and falls with the breath, as it expands and contracts. Let the tension in the belly go. Just let it be free. And then we'll bring our awareness from the belly around to the top of the back, starting at the base of the neck, guiding the awareness downward through the shoulder blades and through the upper third of the back. Again, just observe, experience the sensations, and let the tension go. Let the awareness move downward a bit through the middle third of the upper back. Again, just observing, releasing. If you come upon sensations that are difficult or unpleasant, sometimes there can be a feeling of blockage in the movement of awareness, sometimes a feeling of restriction. So if you notice unpleasant sensations in the back or anywhere else in the body, just allow all the space needed for those sensations to be just as they are. There's no need to push against them or dislike them. Whatever the sensations are in this moment, just allow them to be. Allow spaciousness. Allow the muscles in the back to relax. Guide the awareness down a bit further into the lower part of the back now. Again, observing sensations, meeting anything unpleasant with extra spaciousness, allowing things to be as they are. Let the awareness flow down from the lower back into the sit bones. Feel the awareness moving through the hips and throughout the pelvis. Allow the awareness to move down into the thighs. We'll spend a little time observing the different parts of the thighs, the tops, the sensations there. Tension is released. And then rotating outward to the sides of the thighs, all the way from the hip down to the knee joint, observing and letting go. And then the underside of the thighs, then the inside part of the thighs, and allow the awareness to flow downward through the knees. Observing the sensations and releasing any tension around the knees. Allowing spaciousness, expansive awareness if there's discomfort. Finding peace. Allow the awareness to move through the calves. Feel it moving through the shins. Feel it moving downward toward the ankles. Just focus on the soothing flow of awareness and the sensations. Allow the awareness to flow through the ankles. Let it move down into the feet and observe the heels, the soles of the feet and the sensations there. Sometimes there's a sensation of perspiration or moisture. Observe the balls of the feet and bring the awareness to the tops of the feet and the sensations there. And then move the awareness into the toes, bringing it finally to the toenails. And again, just spend a moment observing. Are there any sensations in the toenails? Sometimes there are no sensations. Other times there are subtle sensations. And from the toenails, we will bring our awareness once again up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. And this time at your own pace, you can just start to move the awareness back down through your body, part by part. And you can move slowly, or you can move more quickly if you'd like. But do take a moment to notice the sensations in each part of the body, if only for a moment. Meet any tension you discover with a releasing, with a letting go. Allow the tension to leave the body. Notice the places where tension has returned. Places where you let the tension go maybe just a couple of minutes ago and now you're finding tension again. There are places in the body where we hold tension habitually. And it's helpful when we come upon these places to notice, to release the tension. When we experience difficult emotions, afflictive emotions, stressful experiences throughout the day, we tend to tense up as a way of protecting ourselves. And then after the situation changes or the mind has moved on to other topics, oftentimes the tension remains in the body and it continues to echo the difficult emotions that caused it, the stress, the anger, the worry. Being aware of what's behind the tension in this way, we can release it. We can look for it and release it over and over and begin to change the habit pattern of the mind and body so that our new response is letting go. And once you've had a chance to move your awareness down through your body, all the way from your head to your feet, you can bring your awareness up to the base of the nose. And we'll start by focusing on the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. With your awareness focused here, become aware of the movement of the breath. Breathing in, be aware of the in-breath. Breathing out, be aware of the out-breath. And expand the awareness from that little patch of skin up into the rings of the nostrils. Be aware of the in-breath. Be aware of the out-breath. And expand that awareness a bit further into the nasal passages. Be aware of the in-breath. Be aware of the out-breath. Within this triangular area of the nose, maintain awareness of the movement of the breath. Breathing in. Breathing out. Try to stay with the breath for its full duration. Breathing in, stay gently with the breath as it slows and pauses. Then it reverses direction and becomes the out-breath. Stay with the out-breath for its full duration. Observe as it slows and pauses, and then it reverses direction and becomes the next in-breath. Maintain this continuity of awareness. And as you breathe in and out, you can expand your awareness to include the touch of the breath. Anywhere in this triangular area of the nose. With the in-breath, the sensation of the touch of the breath. With the out-breath, the sensation of the touch of the breath. And as you focus on the touch of the breath, open up your awareness to even subtler sensations within the breath. Breathing in, the breath feels a bit cooler. Breathing out, the breath feels a bit warmer. Breathing in, the air feels a bit drier. And breathing out, the air feels a bit more moist. Just observe, stay present with the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations of the breath. Sometimes distractions will arise and they'll pull the mind away from the breath temporarily. Sometimes there'll be a sound in the room, in the building, or outside. It'll pull the awareness. If you notice that, in that moment of awareness, simply guide the awareness back to the triangular area of the nose. Just reestablish awareness. Let go of the sounds. Focus on the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations. And sometimes there will be sensations in the body that will pull awareness away. Sometimes a feeling of discomfort or a tickle. Noticing these distractions, again, just return the awareness back to the breath. Simply observe the coming and going of the breath, the touch and the sensations of the breath. And let the sensations take care of themselves. Sometimes you'll find that the mind is wandering in thought, or it's imagining, remembering. If you notice these distractions, once again, in that moment of awareness, that moment of noticing, just bring the awareness back to the breath. Return to the movement of the breath in and out. Return to the touch and the sensations of the breath. And there's no limit to how many times you can do this. Just return again and again. Each time you do, it's a moment of awakening. Return to the breath. Remain focused on the breath. And let's share just a few minutes of silent meditation together. Just remain focused on the breath. In a few minutes I'll sound the bell to end the meditation. take your time. Bring your awareness back to the room. If you want to take a minute to stand or stretch, change positions. There is hot water for tea in the kitchen if anybody wants some tea. You know, sometimes it's hard to stay awake after a good meditation, at least when I start talking. So help yourself. There's tea in there. The water should be hot. I started it before the meditation. And we'll just take a minute to let people come back. One of the things that is helpful to pay attention to is how when meditation ends, how a lot of times our frame of mind starts to change. We start to transition out of the deep peacefulness. Samadhi is the word in Pali, but the deep peacefulness of meditation. We start to move out of that, and we start to get in touch again with the outside world. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but it's just something to be aware of. How when awareness changes, when we change from the inward-looking awareness to the outward-looking awareness, how the awareness changes what we are aware of, our reactions to it. And then the thing we can do is continue to notice whenever negative reactions start to come up. When that happens, we can just let that negative reaction go and return to equanimity. And really, mindfulness is all it takes, just noticing, oh, I'm a little distracted, or I'm a little worried about something I've been thinking about. If you notice that, you observe it objectively, you really can let go of a lot of that reaction and just return to the awareness of equanimity. That was a gift, yeah. Isn't that something?
It was a gift and you're sharing it with us?
Absolutely.
It's in Cedar Lake Reflections.
It is.
Well,
and it's their chocolate mint. I might have to go in on this really good stuff.
Yeah. There's Demerara sugar in there too, so the combination is pretty good. I think we'll begin. Last week, let's see, we've got a couple of handouts. Last week we had started a conversation on the three characteristics of phenomena. And so for any of you who weren't here last week, we're going to want to give you one of these.
Is it Study Guide 4?
Yep, Study Guide 4. And then we've got another one for tonight. We're going to move into some other things. So Steve, would you be willing to pass those on? Thank you so much.
3 and 4.
Oh, no, I don't have both of those.
Yeah.
We don't have it.
4.
Okay, Is there another one besides the 4? Is it
Yep,
the 3?
and, well, there is a 3.
I have the 3, but I didn't bring them.
Okay, no, you don't need that.
Okay, I need them all.
You need them all?
There we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
There's a 3.
Thank you.
3 or 4?
I have 4.
You have 4, you need a 3?
Well, I need one we have there, but it's not a 3.
Oh,
Yeah, she'll need
It's
the
a-
one,
Oh, this is study guide 4.
everyone's gonna need one tonight that
Self and not
says
self.
self and not self.
Okay.
Oh,
You want-
this is
you
what I
want-
need.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I need both,
I don't
'cause
know
I don't
about
think
those,
I've
man.
been here for a while.
I made you come.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is this sweet in this chocolate and stuff?
I don't believe it's got any sweetener.
Oh. So you put a big chunk of that sugar stuff?
If you like it, yeah,
It seemed like so much.
or a couple.
But it's not
Like regular, it's not like a regular.
No, it's not a refined sugar. It still has the natural molasses in it.
Oh, okay.
So it's got a real
Might
rich,
be a little bit good for you.
yeah, it's got a real rich flavor to it.
I got 4.
Sometimes I'll just,
It takes
two
a while
one.
to get used to.
yeah, it's
The
good
glue,
though.
They use that like in the coat and stuff.
Yeah,
Really fine.
it's good stuff.
So what is it? What is it called?
Demerara.
Oh, is that what it is? Where do you
Yep.
get it?
You can get it at any co-op. I know Family Fresh carries it with their sweeteners and things like that. Even Walmart carries some Demerara sugars.
So, how did it come that you put it in a little glass bottle with it?
It was kind of in a cardboard box, sort of difficult to get into. So, yeah, mason jars are kind of how I store a lot of my stuff. So
All your beans and
wonderful.
lentils.
That looks like one that
Okay.
didn't quite work.
We're only a page long, right?
Yeah, well, 4 pages, so, but yeah, one sheet of paper.
Okay. very
Yeah,
good.
thank you so
Yes.
much.
Yeah, my pleasure.
It's harder than you would think to hand these up. And that's why Cheryl, who's a retired teacher, normally does it, and teachers are really good at that stuff. They are. It's a skill.
There you go.
So, all right, so we're going to talk a little bit tonight about self and not self. And last week after our conversation, I was kind of asking for comments or reactions, and one of the probably the most common reaction was confusing. And so tonight I wanted to try and make it a little less confusing. So we'll begin to talk about at the bottom of page 2 on the handout that says. It should say handout 3 on it, right? Do we have one of those? Or what does it say?
And
Handout
study
4?
guide 4.
Study guide 4, I'm sorry. Study guide 4. Bottom of page 2. And if you don't have it with you, that's fine. I'll just read through. But we're going to talk about the 5 aggregates and the 4 aspects of mind. And again, I'll try and make this less confusing. What the teaching on the 5 aggregates and 4 aspects of mind is about is it's telling us that our consciousness, the experiences that we're having in any given moment, that they're actually the result of a few things happening one after another. And so our experiences are a result of a process rather than something we just walk into. And without mindfulness, we might think that we just walk into these fully formed experiences, but with mindfulness, we can start to notice how this process takes place. And so this weekend, when I was sitting out front watching the parade, I thought about, watching the parade is really a lot like the 5 aggregates and the 4 aspects of mind. You're sitting on the side of the street, you're sitting in a chair watching, and different floats come by. And when a new float comes, you're looking at it, there's the awareness, oh, here's a here's a float with the marching band, and you watch, you listen, watch them go by. Then there's a pause. It's like a minute of space, and then the next float comes by. This one might be some little kids doing something, or it might be a tractor or whatever it is. So there's just this sitting on the side of the road, watching as the parade goes by. And in many ways, when I was watching that parade, I thought, this is really what awareness is like. The 5 aggregates and the 4 aspects of mind. The first aggregate is physical form. So something comes by. Let's just say it's the marching band. Physical form. You see the different people in the marching band. The second aggregate and the first aspect of the mind is the cognizing part of the mind. So something is happening, there's something going on in the physical environment. We see that, and there's awareness. That's the second part, just the cognizing part of the mind. The third aggregate and second aspect of the mind is the recognizing or recognizing part of the mind. And what that simply is we see the marching band walk by, we hear the marching band walk by, maybe we feel the vibrations of the drums and the instruments, and then there's a part of the mind that says, hey, that's a marching band. It's just real simple. So we're sitting at the side of the road. The us sitting is awareness. Marching band is going by, physical form. We see it, we hear it, we feel it. The recognizing or recognizing part of the mind says, hey, that's a marching band. And then the fourth aggregate and the third aspect of the mind is the sensing part of the mind. We experience sensations as a result of what we sense and as a result of what we cognize. And sensations, there's just 3 types. They're either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither unpleasant nor pleasant. So neutral. Okay? So again, awareness, sitting on the side of the road. Here comes the marching band. We see it, we hear it, we recognize it. Marching band. Sensations come up. If you like marching band music, maybe there's a pleasant sensation. If you don't care for marching band music, or maybe it's just too loud, kind of hurts your ears, maybe there's an unpleasant sensation. Or maybe there's I like marching bands, but that's a little loud, so there's kind of a pleasant, I like marching bands, but then that's loud, so there's an unpleasant sensation. So there's sensations going on. Just anything we recognize, anything we cognize, there's going to be sensations along with it. And then the fifth aggregate and the fourth aspect of the mind is the reacting part of the mind. And the reactions typically come in the form of craving or clinging or aversion. And it's very subtle, but you can observe this happening. So I'm just going to read from the text here. You could say that the fifth aggregate and fourth aspect of the mind, the reacting part of the mind, is where dukkha, remember that word dukkha, that's where dukkha really shows up. That word dukkha means dis-ease, it means agitation, it means worry, it means suffering. It can be very mild all the way to very extreme, but there's a reacting part of the mind, and this is where the dukkha shows up. The preceding 4 aggregates and 3 aspects of the mind are pretty much just happening on autopilot, right? So we'll go back to the parade. If you're sitting on the side of the road, you can't really control what float is going to come next, right? It's just coming by. And you're there, and because you're there, you cognize it, you see it, you hear it, you feel it. There's a sensation, or there's a recognition, oh, that's the marching band. Now there's a big farm tractor. Now there's motorcycles. So there's recognizing, it's just recognizing what that is. And along with that recognition, there's sensations. The sensations are sometimes really subtle and we don't notice, but the sensations lead to the reactions. I like it, I don't like it. I wish that float would stop right here and they would just play their music for 5 minutes, or I don't care for this, that can go ahead and go by. So there's these reactions. And again, everything that's happening up until that point is kind of on autopilot because we don't really have a say in it. Now, we do have some control. We could say, well, I'm going to listen to this kind of music in my car, or I'm going to watch this kind of a show on TV, so that we do have some choice in the matter. But a lot of the time, just out and about in our normal daily living, we're just sort of exposed to things, and then we're having these experiences. So a couple of things become apparent. First is that our reactions to things are what cause that dukkha, that suffering or that agitation or that worry or that fear. Second is that our reactions are volitional, meaning we can choose them and we can change them. So this is where I'll tie it back to our meditation practice, because this is where we really experience it. When you're sitting in meditation, like we were just doing, odds are at some point in time there was some sound that distracted you momentarily. Now, in meditation, there's a spaciousness that might not normally be there in your consciousness. So normally you might hear a sound and it might, your reaction to that might be, I'm irritated or I'm annoyed, or I wish that loud motorcycle wasn't going by outside, I'm trying to meditate, this kind of thing. So we're reacting to it. What we discover in meditation, though, is that there's spaciousness there. We can become aware of this process taking place, so it's like, hey, there's a sound, loud truck. I don't like that sound. The reaction starts. Rather than going into the reaction, just kind of blindly, we notice that, and that's the moment where we can just say, I think I'm going to let go of that sound and move back to equanimity. So that's the practice. It's to recognize that moment of reaction starting up, that fifth aggregate and fourth aspect of the mind. It's called the sankhara if you do much reading on meditation, but that's really where the suffering happens. And then we've all had that experience where we hear that sound or we feel that unpleasant sensation in the body, and then we notice that and we say, I'm just going to let that go. I'm going to return to equanimity, I'm going to return to balance, and we let go. And then what's there? There's this tremendous peacefulness. So this is just a little example of, regardless of what's going by on the parade, or regardless of what's coming up in our consciousness, whether it's stuff we're choosing to experience or not, we do have the ability to determine what our reactions are going to be.
I have
So,
a question.
yeah.
You said, the feeling arises and it could, you might experience dukkha. But
Mhm.
wouldn't you also, for instance, you had a beautiful voice and you were singing at some concert and it was great. And you can't go home thinking, this is great, I was really doing well. So it wasn't an unpleasant,
Right.
it was pleasant.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you call it a dukkha if it's pleasant?
That's a good question. The answer is that it isn't dukkha. If it's a pleasant sensation, we experience it as a pleasant sensation. And then when that pleasant sensation is over, we just let it go. Then there's no suffering, there's no dukkha. But if we had that pleasant sensation, now I think you were using the example, if you were the singer and you're kind of reflecting back on it, and you think, yeah, that went well. I feel good about my performance. no dukkha. But if you say, I better perform like that in tomorrow's show, or I'll be disappointed, then there's a little dukkha. Does that make sense? So there's
Or if somebody doesn't recognize it.
that could be something too. If you're searching for recognition as a way of getting pleasure or validation or feeling good about yourself, and then you don't get that validation, then there's dukkha. But if you sing, you do your best because you love to sing, and whatever you have is what you offer, and when you're done, and you're doing that without concern about how people react, then there's no dukkha. So, and that's really an excellent question, because that kind of comes into the subtlety of this whole suffering experience, is that a lot of times there are kind of layers to it. You know, you can say, yeah, I feel good about what I did. You know, I worked hard today, or I did a good job, or I helped someone, or I kept to my task list, or anything like that. And there's nothing wrong with these pleasant things. There's nothing wrong with recognizing them as skillful actions or helpful actions, wholesome actions. But it's when we start to say, okay, now I need that each time. Or I can't go backwards from that. I have to do better next time. Well, if you don't do better next time, then there's the suffering. So really what this is just kind of a window into human nature, the way we all like praise and we don't like blame, the way we all like pleasant experiences and we don't like unpleasant experiences. But if an unpleasant experience is taking place, let's go to pain in the body. If you're experiencing pain in the body, now let's say you know that it's going to be there. Chronic pain, you can't really get rid of it. It's something you're going to have to deal with. Then you start to notice how your reaction to the pain is really what determines your experience. So you can say, my hip hurts. There's pain in my hip. And then you can let that pain be there as it is. Or you can say, there's pain in my hip, and this is so horrible, I can't stand my aging body. I can't stand the thought of having to deal with this pain all day today. It's going to make me crabby. How am I going to deal with it? Now you've got these overlays on the original sensation, which is just pain in the body. Now again, nobody likes pain in the body, but you see how this mental stuff, the reaction, that fifth aggregate, that fourth aspect of mind, that's the thing we start adding to everything. And usually we do that so quickly that we don't notice it. And so really what this is saying, the reason it's broken down like this into these aggregate parts is just so you see, oh yeah, this is happening. It's actually a process. So I don't necessarily just become crabby, but there's a process taking place. Or I don't become angry, there's a process taking place. So we can observe the process, and when you observe the process, it takes the mystery out of it for one thing, but it allows you to start to work with it. How am I going to work with my reactions? A lot of the stuff I put on the bulletin board out there is kind of skillful ways for working with reactions. There's a thing I put in the handout here, the flashlight simile by Ajahn Chah. I'll read this to you. Ajahn Chah is he's passed away now, but he was a great teacher in the Thai forest tradition. And this little quote in the beginning, he says, we have to talk about the Dhamma like this, using similes, because the Dhamma has no form. Is it square or is it round? You can't say. The only way to talk about it is through similes like these. And so we end up with lots of similes, like parades and like the flashlight simile that Ajahn Chah uses and all these other things, because that's the way we can understand this stuff. And then, like Elaine brings up a great question. How about singing? How about this? And so, yeah, there's another example. And so we're all working with things like this, and we start to understand it through these similes. So a lot of times we'll find ourselves running those processes, those Gedanken experiments. That's that word that we used last week, which I like. I like to say the word Gedanken, but that's the thought experiment that was kind of made famous by Einstein. So it's a way that we can run experiments in the mind without physically doing something. And we can say, when this happens, then this happens, then this happens. These 5 aggregates and 4 aspects of the mind are really a way of running a Gedanken experiment, seeing for ourselves, oh yeah, when this happens, I react this way. When I react this way, this is my experience. When I react this way instead, my experience changes. And so then it comes down to, how do we want to work with it? So Ajahn Chah's simile on the flashlight, he says, in Buddhism we are endlessly hearing about letting go and about not clinging to anything. But what does this mean? It means to take hold of, but not to cling. Take this flashlight, for example. And so he had a flashlight and he picked it up. Take this flashlight, for example. We wonder, what is this? So we pick it up. Oh, it's a flashlight. And then we put it down again. We take hold of things, even of wanting, in this way. If we didn't take hold of wanting, what could we do? We couldn't do walking meditation or anything else. It's wanting, yes, a defilement, that's true, but later on that leads to perfection. So we must take hold of things first. It's like coming here. First you had to want to come here. If you didn't want to come, you wouldn't be here. We do things like this because of wanting, but when wanting arises, we don't cling to it. Just like we don't cling to that flashlight. What's this? We pick it up. Oh, it's a flashlight. We then put it down again. This is what holding but not clinging means. We know and then we let go. We don't foolishly cling to things, but we hold them with wisdom and then let them go. Good or bad, we let them all go.
That's the hard part.
That is, oh, and by the way, if anybody wants to turn on lights, feel free. Letting go can be difficult, but what I find in my practice, and it's probably true for a lot of people, is that more difficult than letting go is remembering. The Pali word sati, S-A-T-I, that's the word that translates as awareness or mindfulness most often. An aspect of the definition of that word is to remember. So most of us are willing, when we hear, come to talks like this, or we go through these conversations, it's like, okay, that seems reasonable. I would like to let go when I start to react with some emotions that cause me to feel miserable. I'd like to let go. So sati, part of that is just to remember. Oh yeah, there's that coming up again. And so rather than jumping into it and starting to blame ourselves and say, I'm a crummy person, I always get angry at this person when they do this or they say that, and then I feel bad about it, or every time I see this political person, I react with some negativity or some animosity, and then I feel bad because there's hatred in me and this kind of a thing. Well, noticing that, just noticing when that stuff comes up, that's your opportunity to look at it like the flashlight. Pick it up. What is this? Oh yeah, there's me not liking that political party. And there might be all sorts of valid reasons for that. But then it just comes down to, can I let go of the hatred that I might feel? Or can I let go of the animosity? So it's kind of an asking ourselves that question. And then being willing to let go. So really, the letting go not so hard as the remembering to do this. Just remembering to hold our experiences with this compassionate awareness, because we're all looking to find freedom from our suffering and to feel better. So it's just remembering to hold our experiences with this compassionate yet objective awareness. Don't blame ourselves, don't blame the other person, just be aware. This is anger. When I react with anger, I don't feel so good. It's in me. I feel bad. Anger is non-directional. When I generate anger, I feel it, and it's not pleasant. Knowing that, can I let go? And again, oftentimes, once you ask yourself that question, honestly, then the letting go part, really, that can happen. And you find that's easier. So if you maybe just practice with that, remember, just pay attention. Oh, there's the reaction again. There's the reacting mind. Can I let go? Can I let that go? So that flashlight simile is really helpful. I wanted to share a second meditation tonight. Before we do that, any other questions on this, or any other great similes like the singing and the reacting?
I've got a little Gedanken experience that I had recently. I suffer from misidentification, or losing myself quite a bit, and as I think humans do, even right now as I share, I'm starting to get a little nervous, and so I see that my ego is going away, and so to some degree it's difficult to share, but so I was picking my daughter up from an event, and we had gone through experiences before where she oftentimes says, pick me up at a certain time, and I'll be there waiting, and time will pass, and she'll come 20 minutes late. And growing up, I had the opposite experience where I always gave my parents I would be 20 minutes ahead of time, so they wouldn't have to wait for me. So I've got this conditioned experience where I think role-playing as a father, I shouldn't have to wait for my daughter because I'm busier than she is. So I've got that going on in me, but as my awareness is growing, I think, well, I'm going to pick her up, I'm going to be there at the time that she wants me to be there, and I'm going to trust that she's going to be responsible. Well, so I'm sitting there waiting for her to come out, and I see other kids coming out, and I don't see her, and I can feel this unease rising inside of me, and I thought to myself, well, I'm not going to do this, but it's still rising, so I'm stuck in this awareness, and so I start thinking, well, what if I was at work right now and I'm waiting for an important customer, and all of a sudden I think, well, I could wait here forever because they're an important customer and they're paying me to sit here, and so all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, now my role changed from father to a business person, and now all of a sudden I'm not agitated that I'm waiting. And then I started thinking, well, okay, what if it was my parents that picked my parents up? And again, now I'm not aggravated for some reason because they're my parents or my wife. And I went on through a bunch of different things, and I started thinking, well, which one is me? Which one is I? And of course, none of those things are I. none of those roles that I play are I. And, but I lose myself in that probably all day, every day to some degree or another. So role playing is how a lot of times I find that I can let things go. I can realize I'm playing a role, you know. Right now I'm playing the role of spiritual Steve, you know, to some degree. You know, I'm not saying that this is not real, because it is, and it's something I get enthused about. But by seeing the role in it, it helps me see through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. And I think you're right. I think all of us, to some degree, you know, do that all day long, you know, the different roles. I think it's interesting, though, that you came upon how the conditioning you bring to the set of circumstances changes entirely what your experience is, you know, your reaction to it. So yeah, if it was a customer, wait all day long, because your conditioning tells you, yeah, just be patient, you know, this person can be late. Or your conditioning tells you, well, my kids should be respectful, you know, and if they don't come when we agreed they should, you know, then that's maybe a sign of disrespect, and then we start to have that feeling, you know, that feeling of dukkha. And so it can be subtle, it can be more intense, but now again, in the way you describe this happening, it sounds like there was this moment of kind of recognition or remembering, oh yeah, you know, this, I've seen this before. I know how this goes. I know how my reactions steer me into feeling angry or anxious or upset. And so it's that noticing. And again, the willingness is usually there, you know, because we all want to feel free. But it's just it's the remembering. So, yeah, that's, in many ways, that's what mindfulness is just remembering. Just remembering. And then every time you come upon it, approaching it with that kindness and compassion, approaching yourself with that kindness and compassion, not judging, but recognizing, oh yeah. And there's the spiritual Steve who's looking for a wholesome alternative to the past reactions. You know, what can I do that will bring me long-term happiness?
It seems to me that a lot of that focuses on expectations.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
your expectations for your child are different than they are for your parents. Maybe because your parents are elderly, you're gonna cut them slack, whatever. But you are expecting your daughter to behave the way you acted.
Because it's it's
Sure.
a reflection of how you parented.
Yes.
And I think expectations, we have expectations for ourselves, we have expectations for other people, that enters into judgment. Then we get into judgments on people, or on ourselves, and putting ourselves down, or judging other people, or they're bad, or they're wrong, but you know, the mind, it always kind of kills me when we talk about this stuff, because supposedly people are the highest form of life because we have thought, but that's what causes us all our problems. Our thoughts actually create a lot of our problems.
Mm-hmm.
So it's this sitting in judgment or these expectations that we have. I found that they all have to do with misidentification of who I am and who other people are. It's forgetfulness of self is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It all boils down to that. Anytime you're expecting something from anybody, you're playing some kind of role, including yourself, and you're missing who you are and who they are.
Mm-hmm.
As a
Yeah, and
parent,
if
though,
you-
honestly, I have to say that I don't think it's unreasonable. I mean, sometimes things happen, but they're late. Well, would your daughter be as patient? I mean, does she expect you to be in there? You know, I mean, it's tough, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's,
it's
Yeah,
still-
there's-
Sometimes there's something that might be like, you know what, this doesn't feel right to me, that I mean, things happen where kids can't help it.
Mhm.
So did you let it go? I mean, how could you let it go? Or did you say,
Sometimes you gotta
or
talk
did you
about
say
it.
something to her?
I think we talked about it, but I think, that wasn't the first time I had a discussion like
Oh.
that.
Mhm.
You
So
know?
it's not.
So how can you let it go? Yeah.
But, well, you know, if you use the parade watching simile, maybe, and just say, you know, here's me, I'm awareness, I'm the watcher, I'm the knower, and what's moving through my consciousness right now. You know, there's the marching band, I see it, I hear it, I feel it, I'm recognizing it, I know what it is, there's a sensation, pleasant or unpleasant, I'm reacting to that. That's a way of kind of moving to a more objective observation of what's going on. And, you know, like people are saying, it doesn't mean that we just, you know, let the kids, I don't care if you're an hour late or if you know, whatever. But what you're dealing with really is your reaction to all of that, you know, and that's where the suffering comes from. So is there a way of working with it skillfully, which is the word we use a lot in the practice, skillfully? Is there a way I can work with that does not cause me to suffer and does not cause her to suffer? Because of course that's the result a lot of times. If we suffer, we'll start to kind of lash out and you know, punish others around us. We cause suffering for other people. So again, things like anger, non-directional. Things like, you know, fear, non-directional. We tend to share that with others in one way, shape, or form. But yeah, so it's just, to me that's impressive that you had that degree of awareness that you were able to, you know, run that Gedanken experiment, or essentially be mindful of what was going on in the present moment, and rather than just letting your reaction take you on autopilot, you were aware of it, and there was this wisdom mind that moved in front of the reactive mind and said, there might be another way to approach this. And then all of a sudden you started to have these, sounds to me like a lot of wisdom came to you, that, you know, it's like, yeah, this is how my different roles, and I react this way with customers, and I react this way with my child, and maybe I react this way with other people, and so it's like this awareness. And then, not beating yourself up for it, but just saying, okay, so what's my next move here? You know?
So you're saying you can still address it without being reactive?
Oh yeah, it doesn't mean, you know, that we have to just kind of let everybody walk all over us, but it means that we can choose a different way to react to it, you know?
That's what I like the words, we have a choice.
Yeah, we have a choice. It's volitional, and I think I wrote that in there somewhere, that the reactions are volitional, and that's really what we see in this practice, is that the stuff that we thought was all just sort of baked into the cake, and that when this happens, I get mad, and when that happens, I get scared, and when this happens, you know, I get stressed out, and we sort of think that that just comes to us as, here it is, finished product, here it is, finished product. But really what's going on is this process, and it's taking place over and over. And again, maybe the first 4 steps in the process we don't have a whole lot of control over, like the parade, can't control who's coming next. But if I'm aware of what my reactions are, those I can choose. Those reactions I can choose. And you start to practice with that, and that's why we call it a practice, because you do it over and over and over, and then suddenly you'll realize, wow, you know, I've really changed the way I react to this kind of stuff. And that's one of the kind of fun things that comes up from meditation, is you'll be in a situation where you realize, you know, a year ago I would have really gotten bent out of shape about that, you know, or I'd really be freaking out if this was happening. But now I find myself aware of it, and I find myself deciding, well, how do I want to react to that? You know, how do I choose to react to that? Do I want to go with the fear or the anger? Where do I want to go with compassion, loving kindness? Still talk to people about what reasonable expectations are for behavior and things like that, but not coming from a place of, feeling like our self-worth takes a hit when things don't go the way we had planned them to. If that makes sense.
And excuse me, what, it was Duncan?
Gedanken. It's in that handout, isn't it? No. The spelling, if anybody's curious.
Yeah.
And it's G-E-N, or no, I'm sorry, G-E-D-A-N-K-E-N. Okay? G-E-D-A-N-K-E-N. A Gedanken experiment. And it's usually translated as a thought experiment. But it was kind of made well known or famous by Einstein when he came up with the general theory of relativity. There was no way to test any of that out in a laboratory because it's all, hypothetical. But he ran the experiments in his head. He thought, if this happens, then that happens. In the practice, we call it dependent co-arising. Everything happens because something else happened. This happens, then that happens. This happens, I react this way.
So what's the word?
Gedanken. G-E-D-A-N-K-E-N.
That's in
Gedanken.
the dictionary.
Yeah, it's, well, if you Google it, you'll find more than you'd ever want to know.
No, it's not another language.
I think it's
Oh,
German.
German.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's German.
German.
Oh, it's not possible in Polish.
Yeah, because of Einstein.
That's not German.
But it's interesting. I mean, when we think about that, I mean, a lot of us would say, yeah, that general theory of relativity is probably one of the greatest discoveries of physics, of science, probably in our lifetimes. Most people would probably agree with that. But that was the result of the wisdom mind working through something. And one of the things he had to have in order to make that work was objectivity. If he came into it and said, here's the result I'm looking for, this is the way I want the universe to turn out, then he would have had some problems with that. He would have been curving everything to fit that image. But instead he said, let me see what happens. Let me run this experiment and see what happens. So that's really what this practice is asking us to do, is to be aware and remember, and when we do, be willing, just be willing to let go. Pick it up and look at it like Ajahn Chah says, look at it like a flashlight. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Let me put that down. Easier to do, difficult to remember when we're in the heat of it. But, yeah. Well, any other thoughts on this? I'll probably bump that extra meditation to next week. I've got it described here at the end of that handout, guided meditation on open sky. So I want to share that with you, but it'll take about 15 minutes. So we're almost at the end of our time here tonight. So we'll save this.
I have one question, kind of a question, but.
Yeah.
Okay, especially at night, I have trouble with remembering thoughts of dumb things that I've done in the past or have said. And it's really hard to let it go. It's like, so I don't know what it is, why that is.
Mm-hmm. Does this happen at bedtime? A lot of times?
Well, during the day, but I'm busy enough during the day.
Right.
And at night,
And I think that's true for so many people, where as soon as you lay down and everything's turned off, then the thoughts just flood in. It's like the floodgates open and you can't stop thinking.
Isn't that the monkey mind?
That's the monkey mind, yeah, I'm glad you remember that, Judy. Yeah, there's a teaching on the monkey mind where we do a quick meditation to kind of divert our attention away from things that are starting to upset us or to worry us. But
I like to get down to letting go, but I don't know what I'm letting go.
mhm,
You know, I mean, what's causing it in
Right.
me,
it is
so that I can let it go.
right. It's the habit pattern of the mind, which is to be projected usually into the past or into the future. And that's how we kind of alternately work with the mind. So if you notice that, just be aware of yourself as the observer of this happening rather than the person that's caught up in it. Just be aware of at some point, objectively, oh yeah, there's me thinking. And then take a look at that. Where is that thought? Is that in the past or is that in the future? Because thoughts are generally not about the present moment. Present moment is experience, so thought is past or future. And past, a lot of times you're pulling up stuff that's kind of regretful or frightening or made you mad or you wish you could do it over. Or if you're thinking about the future, a lot of times it's, boy, I don't want that to happen. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope this person's okay. Being aware of that tendency of the mind to move into the past or to move into the future, just noticing that objectively, not blaming yourself, and then focusing your attention on what is happening in the present moment. Which, interestingly, a lot of what's on the handout that everybody got, but we'll start talking next week, that's what that's about, is how do we work skillfully with the present moment so we can let go of our afflictive emotions or those thought patterns that just keep haunting us. So there's some specific tools we can use for working with that. But really, what you've done is you've made the first very important step, which is awareness of it. Awareness of it. And it sounds like there's a willingness then to work with it skillfully. Because a lot of times the reaction is unskillful. I think I'll just have several drinks and then that'll anesthetize my mind, but then that causes a different type of, suffering. So, there's skillful ways of working with it and there's unskillful ways. But noticing that tendency of the mind and just, oh yeah, my mind wants to go to the past. And every time it goes to the past, it wants to dredge up something that I regret or I wish didn't happen. And I relive that over and over and over. Or my mind is in the future. It takes that thing from the past, it kind of projects it into the future, and then I find myself reacting. If this happened again, I'd react this way. If this person said this like they did before, I'd respond with this, and it would really get them this time. And so again, it's the noticing. My mind is in the past, or my mind is in the future. Objectively noticing that, bringing your awareness back to the present moment. So what have you got in the present moment? You've got your breath. You've got the sensations in your body. You've got the sounds around you. You've got the experiences of what is actually happening in the present moment. Bringing your mind to that gives you something real to focus on. Because otherwise we just sort of, well, I don't like that thing about the past. I'm going to just start fantasizing about my next vacation. So we replace it with something else. Again, something that isn't real. So we need to start to focus on, this is what's actually true in the present moment. I've got it in the handout for next week, but just a simple sentence, simple question. What is true without thought? What is true without thought? That's kind of a koan. It's kind of a Zen type of question, but really, if you think about that, paradoxically you have to think about it, but what is true without thought? And so you sort of bump into this, wow, this experience, can't describe it, this unfolding experience in the present moment, this is what's true without thought. And so you start to inhabit that. But
Can I just ask, I'm a little confused here about, because we were talking about self and not self, but what we talked about tonight with the aggregates is part of the 10 perfections.
yeah, it's a little excursion we took when talking about the 10 perfections, because I talked about the 3 characteristics. So yeah.
So are there 5 more, or,
Perfections, or
well, were the 5 aggregates part of it? Oh.
yeah, they're just part of this talk. So don't think of that as part of the 10 perfections. This is just a way of clarifying, giving us examples of how we create a sense of self around our experiences, if that makes sense. So we're going to leave it here. This is great though. This kind of conversation. I mean, this is where it's at. This is where the rubber hits the road for all of us. So, all right. Just before we go, let's take a minute to let go of the teachings and the words and the questions, and just focus for a moment on the feeling of compassion. Focus for a moment on what it feels like when you experience suffering in your own life. There's that feeling of wanting to be free from that suffering. And you deserve to be free from that suffering. Knowing that about ourselves, we can extend that feeling of compassion to other beings. So we say, may all beings be free from suffering and from the causes of suffering. And may all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy. And may all beings be equanimous, which means in a state where they're able to let go of craving and clinging and aversion and attachment, and instead they're able to abide in peacefulness and freedom. And may all of you sharing this space with me tonight, may you all be truly, truly happy. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you so much for being here,
Thank you.
sharing your thoughts and ideas. So everyone's got the handout for next week. I hope to see ya, if you can make it.
You're gonna go home and have a little nap. I have to walk my dog.